Hello. My son went back to school this week, and told me about his day today. He's got like 2 days on, and then rest of the week is online, whatever. And he said they gave us these beans, and we did counting and stuff like this. We did play like a get to know one another type of game, right? And so his mom says to him, "Well, you could maybe plant some of those beans. You have that bag of potting soil, don't you? Do you still have that?" I said, "You got a bag of soil somewhere? It's a real dirtbag move." Huh. All right, I'd like to start with a joke each week. It's not necessarily a good joke because those are hard to come up with. But my name's Dr. Asatar Bear. I'm a professor of economics and teacher of meditation. And what I do with this class is go over the basics of heart rhythm meditation and talk a little bit about the philosophy and some of the ideas that go along with that. And we start at the beginning each week, so it's your first class. Welcome. If you've been following the class, thank you so much. Speaking of thank yous, I'd like to say thank you to my patrons on Patreon, Wayfinder Radio, Daniel, Stephen Goss, and John Walker. Thank you all so much for supporting the live stream and my work on political economy. Really means a lot to me, so thank you. If you're interested in becoming a patron yourself, you can check out my Patreon page. All my patrons get access to a step-by-step course in meditation that takes you through each step. We sort of do a bunch of steps quickly in this class because it's an intro where we start over each week, right? This is more of a sequential treatment, which is helpful if you want to really learn this method. So let me say a little bit about that. The heart rhythm meditation is a method of meditation that comes out of Sufism, particularly the Sufism of Hazrat Khan, who was an Indian teacher who taught in the West, in Europe, and the United States in the early 20th century. And there's many methods of meditation within Sufism and in history at large, right? So this is just one, but it has some features that make it very powerful, and that it works really well. And at least in my experience, right? I'm going to just stick with what I've actually experienced. Um, so I'd like to start with a prayer from Hazrat Khan, um, and this is what he called the invocation, and it I think it reveals something about the Sufi philosophy, okay, about the experience of unity, about trying to see and appreciate the universal, the perfect, the infinite, the divine, in every person that we meet and every experience that we have, right? So it goes like this: toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the spirit of guidance. So I'm going to return and talk about this theme of unity and duality, right? We compare and contrast those different views. But first, let's just try out this meditation practice so that you can get a sense of what it's about if you're new to this. All right. So the very first step is to have a good upright posture. All right. So you want to be sitting in such a way so that your back can be straight, and yet it's relaxed. We don't, by straight, I don't mean like, oh, I guess like all tense, right? I mean, you want to be upright, but using the minimum amount of muscular force that it takes to remain upright. Of course, it takes some, right? You have to engage the muscles of your core, your back, right, et cetera, in order to stay upright. Otherwise, you just sort of slump over, right? So we don't want to have extra tension. We want to be, because meditation is about opening yourself, right? So we want to be as relaxed as we can be. All right. So tune into yourself and just notice, are you leaning too far forward? You're going to feel that in a greater degree of muscular activity, usually in your lower back, right? And are you leaning too far back? But then you're going to feel more. You're going to feel more of that tension in your abs, right, and your front of your core here. So try to be right in the middle, all right, so that you can be upright, but with the minimum tension, all right. And then you close your eyes and you tune into your breathing. So this style of meditation, we are really working on the breath and really working on perfecting the breath, right? So there's five things that is meant by that, all right? The first one is to make your breath deep. So to feel whether your breath is deep, take your hand and just place it on your belly, all right? And as you breathe, you should feel a good degree of motion occurring in your belly, right? Your belly should expand as you breathe in and contract and get smaller as you breathe out. Okay. So just take a few breaths and just feel your belly going in as you breathe out and expanding, getting bigger as you breathe in. Something very soothing about placing a hand on your belly. Um, I've got a comment here from Being Pool. I finally made one of these. Good to have you. All right. So the next intervention we want to make in our breath is to make our breath slower. Right. Normally we take maybe 20 breaths a minute. So try to slow down your breathing rate. Okay. And the way to do that is to extend your breath. Breathe out more than you think you can, perhaps on the exhalation. Maybe just a little bit more at first. All right. You might find it's quite easy to breathe in a slower manner, but if you take your mind off of it, you'll probably go back to how you sort of normally or unconsciously breathe. All right. So heart rhythm meditation has this aspect to it. We're trying to change our breathing. And that takes concentration, right? Concentration is the beginning of meditation, right? We're seeking unity here. And the first step towards that unity is to unify our mind with our activity. So we're sitting here and breathing. We're just making the breath deep in the belly and slow. All right. Now, the next thing that we'd like to do is to make the breath rhythmic. So that means the same length on the inhalation as the exhalation. And you might notice that that's a very natural inclination that we have. Sometimes we fall into bad habits when we breathe. We breathe in quickly and then hold the breath, or we breathe out and it takes much longer, right? This is an arrhythmic pattern. It doesn't necessarily repeat the same way every time, right? So we want to really iron that out, okay? Make the breath very even in terms of your rhythm. At first you can just try to focus on this, right? Just try to notice, what is your breath doing, right? There's a lot to be gained from just tuning in and noticing, what is your breath doing now. But of course, we're intervening in that a bit more, right? We're not content to just let our breath do what it's going to do, right? We're changing it, okay? Now, the best way to make your breath rhythmic and also to connect to the next step of breathing, which is heart centered. Uh, Heart centered means we are focusing the breath, which is energy, which is our fundamental exchange with all of life, right? Life around us. We are taking in that life around us, both on a physical level, right? We're taking in particles of air, right? With all of the different compounds that are present in that, right? And then we're also breathing out, right? That air goes through a transformation process within us, then we breathe it out, right? This is an exchange of literal particles, right? And it's also an exchange of energy. So we want to really focus on that, and we want to focus on that happening in our spiritual center. Okay, it's the center of our emotions and also our spirit. That's our heart chakra. All right, so it's conveniently located on this organ which beats all the time, right? So that's fantastic, right? There's other chakras in the body. None of them have such a powerful signal, right? That's basically saying, "Here I am," right? So we want to tune in to that rhythm. All right. So the way to do this, you place the hand on your chest. You can place it palm flat like this, or you can take your fingertips and just press lightly, right? Take these fingertips, press lightly on your breastbone. Doesn't need to be too hard, but that is going to help you to tune into your heartbeat. All right. What we've learned about this, teaching this to a lot of people, is that about half the people can feel it right away, and about half take some time, maybe require a little bit extra assistance, right? The hand can help, sometimes two hands can help. So if you're not able to feel it, that's okay, don't feel bad, right? uh, there's so many things we have already to make us feel bad, right? We don't need to add meditation to that. Right? Place two hands. Part of this is just a matter of focus and intention, right? So placing your hands on your heart can help physically because you might feel your heartbeat with your hands, but it can also just help to maintain the concentration, right? And you can also take one hand and move it around to your wrist here, right? So I'm curling this around to my wrist and then feeling the pulse that way. Okay. Um, Now you begin to place the beats of your heart along with your breath. So the same number of beats on the inhalation as the exhalation. Now, if you're really struggling to feel your heartbeat at all, well, just imagine what it might be. You're probably not far off, right? We use a second to as a basic unit of time, right? Because that's about the rate that the heart beats, right? So um, if you just count at a kind of even pace in your mind, then you're probably going to be more or less correct. All right. You might try to do a rhythm of 8 beats in and 8 beats out. But you choose the number that works for you. We just need something that is the same number on the inhalation as the exhalation. Making the breath deep, slow, rhythmic, and heart centered. And the final step is to make the breath full. So to breathe more, all right? You started this already when you slowed down your breathing, but now you're really going to work on it harder. Just really squeeze the abdominal muscles as you breathe out. Breathe out a lot more than you have been thus far. You'll notice that there's a lot of air that doesn't normally get breathed out. Um, so this is called your residual volume. That doctors have terms for all of these things. So your total voluntary lung capacity, that's called your vital capacity. Uh, and there's a portion that you don't really typically breathe out. Um, so we breathe, like if this is our whole lung capacity, we breathe a little bit near the top like this, right? So I mean, it's really more in the middle, right? We're not fully, if we're not full either. We're somewhere in the middle, breathing at about this range, right? So rather than using the entire lung capacity, okay? Using the entire lung capacity is a feat, like when you do that. um, like I teach in the course, we have a device that measures this. I usually have it right under my desk. I don't know what I did with it, but it measures your vital capacity. um, It takes a lot of muscular action to fully breathe all the way in as much as you can, right? Um, we want to make our breath bigger than it normally is. All right. And you'll notice when you do this, you don't just stay in the belly, right? That's where we started. But if you really want to breathe bigger and make your breath much more powerful and much more energetic too, then you need to breathe in and fill up your belly and then continue on and breathe all the way up to your collarbone, right? So we'll try that out for a few breaths. All right, I hope you're getting something from this. I hope you're I hope you're experiencing something. Um, you feel free to keep practicing as I'm talking. I'm going to shift our class a little bit toward the teaching portion. We'll come back and practice a little more meditation as we go along. Um, the point of developing your breath like this is that meditation is a range of different things. I mean, like life itself, right? Um, the benefits of meditation occur when you keep practicing, right? um, so a lot of times people try out meditation. There's two basic things that happen when you meditate, right? One is not much happens, right? And you're like, wow, what is this about? Everyone says such great things about it. I'm not getting anything. Um, and that happens too, by the way, to all of us. No matter how much time you spent meditating, no matter how much time you've practiced it, there are times when it feels like just not that much is happening. Um, so you need to have a way of sticking with it, right? And you also need to have a way of breaking through that. Um, and that's where the breath comes in, right? If your breath is big and powerful, you are going to you're going to be able to break through a lot of self-imposed barriers, because that's what this is. This is a self-imposed barrier, so it's like yourself both wants to be known and wants to remain a mystery, right? Because if you know yourself, there's no way that you're going to stay the same. You're going to change. There's a part of yourself that wants that. There's a part of yourself that doesn't want that, right? And so sometimes that part sort of remains in control, right? And keeps a lid on things and does not allow transformative experiences or big experiences or whatever to happen, right? So, okay, we got to be patient with ourselves, right? Too much change or whatever, any kind of change is hard. Um, all right, so the one thing that happens in meditation, right? Not much. The other thing that happens is, oh my God, this is an overwhelming experience, right? And overwhelming experiences are hard. That's the reality, right? It could be wonderful at the time, right? Wonderful experience can be very difficult to integrate, right? Very difficult to know where to put that. Um, you maybe have a wonderful experience. Oh my, now I know what meditation is about. This is fantastic. And then the next time you sit, you have a very mundane experience, and that wonderful splendor is nowhere to be found, right? So, okay, that's difficult, right? Um, uh, or you might have a very painful experience. That is also very common, right? These three things, very very common. Okay, so the point of somebody like me talking about it, right, is first of all just to share with you the method, right, techniques. Um, that's pretty easy to do, right? I mean, I did that relatively quickly. Now, if you feel like you haven't mastered it, or maybe you didn't even follow it, that's okay because this stuff takes a long time to master. Um, like with any technique, I mean, like I teach you how to throw a jab, right? But if you want to get good at that move, you got to practice that a lot, right? I mean, that's what boxers do, right? If you want to learn these breathing techniques and really get them, right, really master them, well, it's going to take time, right? And hearing me say it once is not going to be enough. Um, so I can share with you the techniques. But then, what do you do with these different kinds of experiences? How do you proceed, right? That's the role of having some teachings, right? Okay, I heard about this before, right? Didn't make much sense to me at the time because things don't make that much sense until you've experienced them, right? Until, you're like, oh, okay, interesting, right? That person, you know, they're going on about something and I dimly follow it, right? And, um, but once you've had the experience, you're like, oh, okay, okay, now I'm really motivated to learn, right? Because I want to know what's going on right now. Now it feels a lot more important. Uh, so, this is what meditation is. The role of teaching. It's like you're working with your attitude, you're working with your beliefs, you're working with in the container of your experience. Okay, so here's the thing about beliefs, right? A lot of beliefs are an attempt to kind of impose something on us, right? To say by some authority figure, right? You should believe this or that or the other thing. And that's like at a basic level, that's kind of nonsense. Um, should believe why, right? I mean, um, what works for one person might not work for somebody else, right? Like, why should I believe something just because you believe it, right? Um, I mean, we're different in lots of ways, right? Um, Now, there's something good about it too, because shared beliefs and creates a kind of shared culture, right? So, and this is like what religion generally is, as relative to the spiritual journey, right? Religion provides a a cultural milieu, a set of beliefs that we know are shared by lots of others. That can be there can be something to that, right? That can be very nice. Um, but religions also do a lot of fighting with one another, right? About what is the true nature of belief. I mean, religions, have encouraged governments to go to war over this, right? Um, so that's not so good. I mean, does having a shared set of beliefs and all of the bonding that happens around that, does that have to occur by putting down others, by trying to subjugate others, by saying your way of worshiping or your way of thinking or whatever is wrong and bad? Um, that doesn't seem right, right? I mean, that's something that spiritual people have often spoken out against, right? Say, why are you guys fighting over this? The nature of reality is unity. Um, and the religions have a kind of mixed history of that, right? So how can I say that, right? The nature of reality is unity. Um, how do I feel confident saying that? The nature of reality. Oh my God, what a statement, right? Um, I feel confident saying that because I've experienced that a lot, right? Um, and these experiences have blown me away. I mean, I grew up with meditation. I was lucky enough to, grow up in that milieu, and so I've heard this kind of language a lot, and I thought I understood it as a kid, right? But I never experienced it. When I first experienced it, I was like, "Oh my God!" Right? That everything that I thought I knew just got blown away, right? Um, so there's a big difference between thinking that you know something, knowing something intellectually. It's a little bit like, you can read love poetry or romantic novel or whatever, right? Without having ever been in love, and maybe you find it quite beautiful, um, but it has a very different flavor once you've experienced that, right? Um, and you can sort of tell, you can feel that in a person, right? um, and the same thing with meditation, with the experience of the unlimited, of the perfect, of the infinite. You can feel that in someone else. You can feel that when they talk about it. And this is the experience that we're trying to cultivate in meditation, right? The experience of the unlimited, the experience of unity. And this is, of course, not just me who talks about this, right? This is lots and lots of spiritual masters and saints and prophets, and on and on, right? Because it's a very widespread experience. Although it's often a rare experience as well, right? We would like to open ourselves to having that experience, to cultivating it, right? To to trying to have that experience more, right? So that's, broadly speaking, right? This is what one of the things that we're looking for from meditation, right? Now you might be looking for other things as well, and those things might be, more prosaic. Like I would like to just try to shed some of the stress that I feel. Perfectly good motivation, right? or or I would like to have better concentration. Perfectly good thing to want, absolutely. You know, why shouldn't we want our lives to be better in some way? Um, there is one aspect of this that I kind of dislike that's in the culture right now, which is to say like, well, meditation is going to make you more productive, and that's why you should do it. Um, Now, I don't want to put that down. If you want to be more productive, absolutely right. It's just that I notice that our culture is very like is always putting out these messages like, any moment of downtime, well, you should be hustling, you should be, you should be productive. Um, and that strikes me as pretty inhuman, Um, we shouldn't be feeling bad about the moments where we rest, where we need that, right? We need to that's the rhythm of life, right? It can't be activity, activity, activity all the time, right? It's alternating periods of rest and activity. I mean, that's life, just like the rhythm of the breath, right? There's a rhythm to activity and repose as well. Um, so I don't like thinking of meditation as just some kind of productivity hack. That does a little bit distasteful to me because it's so much more than that, right? It is that, but it's to think of it as just that is too limiting, I think. Um, all right, so how do we relate the experience of unity to what we often confront in religious teachings, which is basically, it's common to see the world divided up into different, tendencies or groups or whatever. It is this is good and this is evil, you know, good and bad. Um, I mean, that's a simple way of understanding things, right? I mean, anything I don't like is bad. All the stuff I do like is good, right? Okay, I want more good stuff, less bad stuff, right? Well, how do we like square that with unity, right? I mean, and the religions take this to a whole nother level, right? I mean, like Christian religion, which dominates Western thought, um, you have God and the angels, right? This is good. And then you have the devil and the demons and hell and stuff like this, right? Representing evil. Um, and then, the next question that automatically kind of comes up is which of these two opposing sides is more powerful? Oh, right. And then you have other issues that come up, like the devil often seems a lot more human than does God, um, because the devil does things that we recognize as being human, right? Um, the devil sins. I mean, this is like this narrative, right? So how do we square that with saying that the nature of reality is unity, right? What about good and evil? What about bad things? And why do bad things sometimes happen to good people, right? I mean that classic philosophical refrain, right? Why? Why God? Why did this happen? You know? Um, Now I think that these kinds of questions are just in our culture, like whether you're Christian or not, right? I mean, these are and by the way, like this kind of thinking is not just in Christianity, right? I mean, it's in a lot of the religions. So it's a common way of thinking. These religions shape our thinking, whether we follow that or not, right? Because it's part of the culture, right? So it affects how we think about our inner lives to some extent, right? Because these ideas are all around us. But we don't want to just remain with ideas, especially ideas that come from somebody else, because then it's like we're eating not the meal, but a picture of the meal. You know, like you don't want to eat a picture of food. Eat food. Like working with somebody else's beliefs or somebody else's ideas or somebody else's concepts. This is dead, right? Where it comes alive is within you, right? It comes alive when you have felt it. experience it, know it, right? Not just once, but repeatedly. Okay. So there's a huge difference there, right? I mean, if I had not ever experienced unity, I might say, well, okay, this book talks about it this way, this other book talks about it this way. It's theoretical, right? Um, and that's fine, right? I mean, some people, there's theory about all this stuff. That's fine. Um, but all I'm saying is it's very different than here's what I have felt, right? Here is what I have experienced. That has a different kind of flavor, right? And I'm just going to be honest, that interests me far more. I don't care that much what was written long ago about this, that, or the other, like where it comes to the inner journey. I care about what I have felt, what I have learned, what I know, right? Now, I mean, to the extent if something it comes up, it's difficult or whatever, right? If I think I can find something helpful in those teachings, then absolutely, right? I'm going to take it in, right? And of course, I've read a lot of spiritual books. I don't want you guys to think I'm against that. No, not at all. But, again, it only goes so far, right? I mean, you could read 1,000 books versus having one momentary experience of unity. And I would take the one momentary experience any day, right? Because there's far more that's real to that, right? Okay, so you know, all right, this experience of unity, that's what we're that's what we're trying to cultivate here. I want to say that when we encounter difficulty, when we encounter hardship, there's a certain kind of natural impulse that comes up, which is to say, why? Why did this happen, right? Uh, and to be angry, to be angry at the universe, to be angry at God. God is supposed to be good. Why this? I've been a good person. I've tried to, again, I think these things come up. They certainly come up in me, right? I mean, I don't know, maybe you're feeling my vibe here, maybe not. Even with people who are atheistic or agnostic, right? I mean, what does this mean, right? Atheist just means I see what their religions are doing and I don't like it, right? Now, I have a lot of sympathy for that. I don't like being told what to do either. I don't like being told what to believe. You know, I don't like when, especially when belief becomes the fuel to get governments to go to war, right? That I don't like that at all. That's horrible. So, I feel what the atheists are saying, right? Agnostics, I feel that too, right? I have questions. I don't know, right? I don't know what's going on. That's a very honest response, I mean, come on, there's so many moments of uncertainty in life. Um, to get to the point where, like, I don't know about so many things, right? But I know what I've felt. I know what I've experienced, right? That that is true to me. I don't know what's true to somebody else, but I know what's true to me. Okay. When you speak from that place of authenticity, I'm interested, right? Period. I don't even care what you're saying. I'm just interested because that's real, right? That has juice to it. Um, if you're talking to me about this person said that, right? Maybe I'm interested, maybe not. All right. Um, so where do we go with this in terms of like techniques? Where do we go with this in terms of meditation? Well, again, the steps that we're trying to follow toward unity, there are stages here, right? So the first one is going from our free floating consciousness. Our mind jumps around, right? I thought this thought and it led me to this thought and it led me to this thought, right? It does its chain. Um, and, our minds sometimes do that in a way that's not very controlled, right? We're not thinking of anything in particular. Uh, so once we start to try to do that, right, to focus, then we have the challenge, which is our minds are like, I don't want to focus on this. I want to think about something else, right? I want to be free floating. I want to be free, right? Um, so focusing the mind is the vital first step here, right? So notice what we're doing here with this method, right? We're focusing the mind on changing the breath. And this is good because then you at least have a way of knowing, okay, am I focused or am I not focused, right? That's one of the primary difficulties in meditation where you're like, what am I doing here again, right? What am I, you get distracted and you have to come back. What do you come back to, you know? So now, most styles of meditation that are out there, I mean, I should say there's a kind of dominant style, right? That's mindfulness or vipassana. Um, this is a very different style, right? Because you're not trying to do so much to your breath, right? You're not all of the things that I told you guys to do, right? Remember the deep, slow, rhythmic, heart centered, full, all that stuff, right? That's a lot of work, right? That's a lot of stuff to focus on. So other styles of meditation do not necessarily have that, right? They might focus on you just sit there and be, right? There's one style, right? There's a bunch of different styles of mindfulness as well. So I don't want to, you know, I don't want to lump them all together too much, right? But that's different, right? You're sitting and then letting stuff fall away, right? The difficulty of that is that it might take a while, Um, what's going to happen if you just sit for, let's say, 2 hours? Um, what'll happen to your breathing? Well, probably. I mean, I've sat with a lot of people, right? What do I notice about the breathing if you sit for a while? Breathing tends to become rhythmic. It tends to become slower. It tends to go down into your belly, right? All of those things happen. It will not tend to be full though, unless you develop that, right? Unless you actually practice that. It's not necessarily going to be heart centered, right? But it's going to be better probably than before, right? You spent that time. So, what's the point of focusing on the breath? Well, to make those benefits happen quicker, right? If you have 2 hours to sit, fantastic. That's great, right? But a lot of times we don't, right? I mean, we have demands on ourselves, right? I mean, we live in a capitalist world. We have to make a living somehow, right? We have we have demands on our time. We have families, we have friends, etc. Right? We have other parts of ourselves that we'd like to develop. So, if we're going to be meditating, we'd like to have something that we can sit down and practice and feel something you know, maybe within a few minutes, right? Now, of course, there's no guarantees with anything, right? But I hope that you've gotten a sense of that, right? That by working on the breath, you get some kind of different experience than what you do, just in your sort of normal state, right? Um, and the other thing is, we want that, we want to develop the power of the breath in order to carry us through difficult experiences, right? Because these are inevitably going to happen in meditation. Um, all right, so let's try this again. Right now, I've talked a little bit. Let's try this again. Okay, so take your upright posture, close your eyes, tune into your breathing, make your breath deep, slow, rhythmic, heart centered, full. Each one of those is a skill. Each one of those takes time to develop. Each aspect that I mentioned is a journey. Now we want to really work on the the connection between your breath and your heart. Okay, so we want to use the breath to allow us to explore our hearts, explore ourselves at a fundamental level. We cannot really know ourselves without knowing our infinite dimension, without knowing our own perfection, our own unlimited nature. So as you breathe in, you focus on energy is coming in to your heart. You're taking in energy, life, breath, vitality from the entire universe. So just focus on the reality. This is not imagination. This is the reality is we have electromagnetic fields, right? We have actual measurable energetic fields. And these go on forever. That is our reality. That's literally scientifically true, right? So you tune into that aspect. Of course, we're usually not aware of that, right? Our electromagnetic fields are usually not our primary concern, or even our secondary concern, right? So, but it's nonetheless real, right? Let's tune in to that aspect of reality, right? That we are entangled energetically, and that's a scientific fact, and that these it goes on forever, right? So of course fields get a lot less strong, right, the further we go, but they never actually end. So as you breathe in, just focus on that the breath is coming from all parts of the universe, from this vast, infinite distances. And you're drawing it into your heart, into yourself. And then as you breathe out, your energy is radiating again throughout the entire universe. Attune yourself to that reality. Now, of course, as you're doing it, I want you to maintain all of the other stuff I told you to do. I want you to keep doing that. So the breath, right? Deep, smooth, slow, rhythmic, all of that. Feeling a heartbeat. I don't have my hand on my chest right now, but if you want to do that and do that, it helps you to feel it. It helps you to have both. You have both. There's something very soothing about having the hands on the heart. When we put one or both hands on the heart, it sends a signal to ourselves, right? Psychologically, there's a connection between what our bodies are doing and what our minds are doing, what our emotions are doing, right? You put yourself in this posture and you're tuning yourself into what really matters to you, who you really are. And there's a part of your nature. To call it a part is even wrong, but that the language doesn't really work well here, right? There's a level, a layer to your being that is infinite. And that is what we are trying to tap into, what we are trying to open ourselves to by this practice. You tune into your breath, you tune into your heartbeat, you adopt the point of view that your breath is infinite. Do you see how natural it is to want to then breathe more? To breathe more slowly, to breathe more fully. Do you see how that gives you more to experience? Right? If you breathe in and it takes a second or something, right, or a few seconds, you don't really have time to experience that infinite flow of energy that enters your being as you breathe in. Your breath takes longer if it takes 8 or 10 seconds. You have a lot more time to appreciate it, to learn from it, to see how the energy of the breath builds and builds, right? And the same on the exhalation. You start to breathe out, the energy is starting, right? Continue in the middle of your exhalation. While that energy continues to build, by the end, it's reached its peak power. We don't want to miss that, right? If you just allowed your breath to be shallow, to be rapid, be arrhythmic, you're going to miss that. Now, if you're feeling your heartbeat and you are counting the beats so that you count the same number on the inhalation as you do on the exhalation, that's very good. Well done. The next step is to then use a word or even a phrase and place that on your breath. So, some weeks ago, we used the phrase, I am all that there is. Okay, this is a phrase that is six beats, right? Six syllables. So, it naturally then works with a six beat rhythm. Okay, you might try placing that phrase on your heartbeat. And then you're saying this phrase to yourself as you're listening to your heartbeat. And as you're doing all the other parts of this practice, right? Deep, slow, rhythmic, heart centered, full. Now, if this is challenging for you, then good. This is a challenge. It's difficult. If you don't feel like you're getting all of it, yeah, I understand. That might happen. Maybe you just get part of it. That's okay. That's good. Meditation's a journey, right? As you take steps forward, your skills will develop, and your body of experience will grow. I'm going to repeat those words from Hazrat Inayat Khan and see if these give you a new kind of interpretation of this. All right, so it's toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of Guidance. It's a prayer that seeks to bring out that aspect of reality, to name it, but in a way that doesn't that isn't too specific, right? Trying not, it doesn't use language that is exclusionary, right? What is the nature of reality? Well, toward the one, right? And that's also what we're doing here, right? We are going from our dualistic understanding, right? I mean, normally we go through life and we're like, I'm here, everything else is outside me. I'm me and you're you, and stay the hell away, right? That's sort of dualistic thinking, right? Unity, it says, I'm me, but my true nature is infinite, right? And how does that work, right? Well, it's I'm a part of the one being, right? But I'm also infinite. Hazrat Inayat Khan put it this way, right? He said, like, God makes a human being like the carpenter makes something out of wood. But what's unlike that is that carpenters are making something out of something that is not themselves, right? God makes the human being out of the substance of God, right? So, wow, right? What a perspective. This is why the experience of unity is our nature. It is our birthright. It's who we are, you know? Like I said, you cannot know yourself. You cannot make sense of yourself without knowing that part, that layer of your being. Your own individuality, your own limitations, your challenges don't make sense unless you have that experience of oneness. All right, we'll end our little practice session there. Um, does anyone have any questions or comments? If you do, feel free to put them in the chat thing, and I'll try to answer it. Um, the when I talked about concentration, right, focusing your mind, and how in this practice we're really giving our minds something to do and something challenging to do, right? And that's good, especially if you're the kind of person that has an active mind. Um, Being told to just do nothing and think about nothing is difficult for that kind of person. Um, so, that's one of the particularities of this method, right? Um, the next step in that is to enter this state of flow. Um, Maybe you've experienced that during this session. I don't know, right? But it's where concentration stops being so hard and you feel like it's just happening, right? You're focused, but you don't feel like, you're like, I'm trying so hard to focus. You just are, right? You just are, you're in the zone. Uh, it's often what this is called, right? Or you're in that flow state, okay? So concentration, focusing the mind, and then entering the state of flow, contemplation. Uh, Now, the Sufism adds a really interesting dimension to that and says, there is a way that you can make progress more quickly than you might even know, right? And that is by catching the vibe, you know? This is why I do these classes live, by the way, right? Because that vibe is present. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's probably stronger, for if we're physically together, right? But even if we're doing something at the same time, right? Even though I can't see you guys, right? I don't get much feedback, right? But I know you're there, right? I'm focused on that, right? On that connection. Um, that you can catch a vibe from some other person. I mean, of course this is true with all things, not just meditation, right? But it's especially true with meditation, right? You can catch a vibe that allows you to go a lot further than you thought you would, right? Or that then maybe you have on your own, or that you could in that moment go on your own, right? um, and so the Sufis are like, yes, use that, right? You use that by really tuning in to your teacher, okay? By contemplating your teacher. So this is a fascinating kind of area of study, right? um, Something that I've done many times myself, right? I've done a lot of this. It works, right? It's so but since we're kind of nearing the end of our period, I'm going to set that aside for next time. uh, So if you watching this, you're interested in supporting the show, I encourage you to have a look at my Patreon page. Again, um, I make available an entire course in heart rhythm meditation, which takes you through these steps very, very carefully. You've got like a video for each one. You have exercises to do, and it's structured so that you do it day by day over time. So if that's something that interests you, check out my Patreon page. The link is below in the description. Uh, so thank you all so much for joining me today. I was feeling that vibe very strongly. So thank you for that. And we're here every week, Tuesdays, 7 o'clock Pacific time. So take care, you guys. Namaste.